Hello, I'm Morris Dimba. Welcome to this tutorial. Today I'm going to take you through the modeling of a very simple industrial building equipped with the crane runway, longitudinal girders. We are going to create and use compound sections for the building columns. Welcome once again, and let's get started right away. And if you take a look on the screen, you'll be able to see a grid already created, and I'll assume this at the moment is not a very difficult thing to create. Now if you want to take a look on the properties of the grid, just double click on the grid right away, and you will be able to see all the dimensions used to create the grid. If you take a look on the XY axis and the Z axis, you'll be able to see the dimensions. On the X axis, you'll be able to see those dimensions, and the Y axis, you'll be able to see all those. Z axis are the heights of our various heights used. Now I'll just close this because I've done this several times, so I'll assume everyone will be conversant in creating the grid and also creating the views. To create a view from this grid, just click on the grid, right click, and scroll down to create view. Pick along the grid lines. The moment you click along the grid lines like that, this grid properties will come up, and just go ahead and click create. I will not click create because I've already created. I might create a duplicate, which I don't want to use now. I'll close this, and I'll take you on the grids or elevations that I've created through create views along the grid lines. I'll go to Windows just to take you through what I've created already, because I'm doing this because I've done this several times. Now I'll assume no one will not be able to create this. Now I picked two views. I picked grid K and grid 1 for the elevation, and I clicked a K for my section view. Now I want to start placing my columns on the elevation K or the grid K. I'll go to view 2 or grid K and click that. I will have this. Now from this view, I want to start placing my beams. I want to start placing my beams right away here. Now I'll click on empty screen there just to deactivate the selection of the grid. Now I'll go straight to steel. Under steel, I'll pick beams right there. I'll pick beam. I'll go straight to the bottom here. Today we'll use beam, not column. We want to create the compound column for our building. Now I'll pick on that spot and run all the way to this height of 11 meters and end it there. I'll right click and interrupt just to walk away from that column command. From here, I want to do the same thing. I want to just double click on the beam just to check on the properties of the column and the profile type of this column. I'll double click, and let me remind you, I'm working under UK environment. Now I'll be using the BS standards. Now the profile of this beam is 4.6, and to confirm that on our catalog, just go ahead under beam under column properties and go to attributes, and attributes come to profile, and adjacent to profile, that click that button that is labeled select. Pick on select right there. Then this catalog will come up. Let it load. We'll have this catalog. Now on this catalog, we'll be able to select one of these under universal beams. Universal beams is under I profiles. Now we have RSJs, and we have jumbo sections. We have HAUs. We'll use the universal beams for 6 by 40 by 46. That's all. I'll go ahead and click apply and click an OK right there, and click the same thing, modify and accept here. Now we'll use the same profile of the column, but to a different height. We'll take it to a height of 8 meters. We'll go back to style again and come to beam and pick beam right there, and start it from right bottom here. We'll pick it from that spot and run all the way to this end and snap right there. Right click, interrupt, just walk away from that beam command. Now we'll switch back to isometric view so that we'll be able to see how these two columns sit on the locations we've placed them. Now I'll come to Windows here and pick 3D. Under 3D, if you zoom closer, you'll be able to see these beams are not sitting perfectly on their respective positions. Now I'll double click on this column and come to position. I'll close this and come to position. I'll come to horizontal under positions. I'll pick this and click middle. It's now positioned properly right in the middle of the column. I'll click modify and apply and give it an OK, and I'll do the same thing here. I'll double click and do the same. I'll come to position under column properties and pick middle right there. Perfect. Now again, what I'm going to do, I want to reorient this beam. I'll double click on it and come to position here and come and pick back. Click back. I want it to be positioned like that. We want to create a compound beam that will be able to provide us a good amount of strength, because we want to create a longitudinal girder for crane runway, and this will be a crane that will be running, will be traveling at a little bit of high speed. Now it needs it needs some good support. Now I'll click apply and accept that. Now from here, we want to start creating our supports, or creating our compound beam. Right away we'll start, but prior to starting, we want to first of all create our pad footings. To create our pad footings, I'll come to Windows, I'll come to grid K right there, and from these two grid lines I want to get a midpoint between the two. I'll come to edit right here, I'll come to points, I'll come to points there, I'll pick online, and I'll snap right here and snap right here. Perfect. I've got my midpoint right there. Now I'll come to concrete. Under concrete, I'll come to footing and pick pad footing right there, and I'll snap this one right here. Perfect. It's sitting right in the middle of the two columns. From there, I'll go straight away and switch back to my isometric right there. From here, I'm going to create my compound beams by supporting these two. This will create a compound beam for us. Now I'll come to beam right here and pick that, and I want to snap at this end and snap at this end, but I'm not able to see it clearly. Now what I'll do, I'll come to Control 3. Now Control 3 will make this transparent, and I'll be able to see all the positions of these two columns. I'll go to beam right there and click beam. I'll zoom close to the bottom end of this, and I'll be able to see the midpoint of that beam and the midpoint of this beam right here. I'll snap right there. After snapping on that spot, I'll go back and click Control 4. The moment I click Control 4, the transparency will disappear, and the building, the columns will be opaque, or will have the original colors. Now I'll double click on this and change the profile of this column. Under beam properties, I'll click that. After clicking that, I'll change the profile of this beam. Let this catalog load, then we'll be able to change this perfectly. Now from here, we will use 203 here. We'll click on that and pick the first one. Once you pick that, go ahead and apply and accept that. Come to beam properties and click modify and apply and give it an OK. Perfect. Now to change the position, just double click on this, come to position and pick front and click modify, apply and accept. That's it. Now we want to create what we want to create now. We want to create the column base. Our column base now will switch back to our grid K. Now from here, I'll come to concrete. Under concrete, I'll pick concrete right there and pick column, then snap right there. From there, I'll double click on this column to change the height and the whole size. To change the height, I'll come to position and change this to 0. Apply, then shift back to attributes and change this to 13. Change this to 1300 and change this to 600. We'll click modify, apply and accept. Now if we switch back to our isometric view, we'll be able to see that this is really in the position. Now from here, we want to create, from here we want to shift this up by 100. Click that. Not really 100, we'll work on that later on after we've populated all this up. Now let's populate this up, this beam, to a height of 8 meters. Now I've picked on it. I'll right click and come to copy spatial. Under copy spatial, I'll come to linear. Under linear, on Z axis, I'll pick Z axis because it's the only axis that is pointing up. Now I'll feed 1 meter. Now how many do we want? We want 8 of these beams. Then I'll type 8. I'll go ahead and click copy and click OK. Right click and interrupt just to walk away from that command. And if we zoom up here, you'll be able to see this has gone beyond the 8 meter height. What we'll do, we'll come to view here and come to navigate. Under navigate, we'll rotate with mouse and pick a position to rotate this model about. We'll rotate about that spot and right click to exit that rotation command. Then come to the beam and double click on that beam. Under beam properties, come to position right there and come to depth here. Under depth, come to behind. Under behind, click modify and it will be able to adjust itself to a position below, a position equivalent to 8 meters. I'll apply that and accept, but still it will not be sitting properly because our couplet will be sitting on top here and will be a slight clash between the couplet and this beam. Now what we'll do, we'll give it a slight shift downward, right click and come to move spatial. Move spatial, come to linear. Then under linear, we'll still work with the Z axis, but will be a negative number. We'll put a negative, then feed 50, then go ahead and click move. It will move by 50 millimeter. Right click and exit that move command. Then we zoom to the bottom here. At the bottom here, we want to place now the base plates. On the base plates, we want to use 1042. Then to get that 1042, we'll have to come to applications and components here. We'll get all the macros for our connections. I'll click on that. Then type here 1042. If you're conversant with these macros, you'll be able to remember all the numbers. Then I'll pick base plate. Once I've clicked base plate, I'll come here and click on the column, and then point at the bottom end here and click right there. Perfect. Now what I'll do next is to double click on it to make some adjustments, but at the moment we don't need this now. We are done with it at the moment. Zoom closer, and come to bolts, come to parts, and we'll change the thickness of our plate to be 16. Change this to 16 millimeter. That's all. Click modify, then come to parameters here. Will not touch anything there. We'll come to bolts right away. On bolts here, we'll type 3, and we'll feed 120 right there. We'll just leave it the way it is, middle, and this just a default, and we'll change this to M20 and give it 8.8 XOX. That's all, and we'll need some washers on our bolts. Then we'll come to anchor rods, and anchor rods we'll need some grouting, 50 millimeter. We'll need it above the column base, and we need anchor rods right there. That's all. Now we'll go ahead and click modify. Perfect, and we'll apply and accept that. Once we've done that, we want to do similar thing to this column also. We'll come to applications and component and pick column base, and pick on that and point on the location we intend to place our base plate. I'll right click and click interrupt just to exit from that base column command. Now I want to shift this tie beam or the beam supports. I'll pick on that, right click, and come to a move command, a move special. Then I'll click linear. Under linear, I'll come to Z axis, and I'll feed here 100 millimeter. Then I'll go right away and click move, slightly clashing with the bolts. Then I'll add another 50 here. I'll add 50 right there, and click move. Perfect, and click on OK just to accept the result. Now if you take a look here, this is perfectly done. Now the next move, we want to create connections here. We want to bolt this, we will not weld. We'll come to, again, applications and component, and use a simple connection, that is 120, that is 32. We'll just type 32. This is a simple end plate. We'll click on that, then I'll pick this and that to create a connection right there. Perfect. I'll double click on this. Once I've double clicked on that, I'll just drag this slightly and come to parts. I'll change this to 16 millimeter and come to parameters here. I'll not use stiffeners, I'll use just plain. I'll come to general there, come to bolts here. Bolts, I'll use M16 and 8.8 XOX, and I'll give it a yes there, and change and give it washers there. I'll pick 3 there and 75, 3 there, and give it 60, a distance of 60. Then I'll just go ahead and click modify. Bring this to middle. Change this to 20, change this to 20, and change this to 2 and 75. and give it an OK right there. Modify. Perfect. Then come to stiffeners. Stiffeners will not work with stiffeners for this for these supports. I'll just go ahead and apply and accept that, and do the same thing the opposite side. I'll click on that, click on this and that. It will be created perfectly. Now I'll close this, and what I'll do, will just do the rest. Do this to the rest of the remaining beams. Now I'll come back again. I did a mistake of exiting from that. I'll just click this and that, this and this and that. We don't want to populate these because the distances are not the same at some point, so it might clash, or it might not come out well, or it might subject us to a lot of deleting of unnecessary connections. Just join this and that, join this and that, join this and this, and this one and that one, connect this and that, and connect this one and that, this one and this one, and this one and this one. Right click and exit. Perfect. Now our next move is to create a couplet for this beam, because we'll be placing this where our crane runway will be sitting on. So we'll come to couplet here. We'll just type couplet. Couplet, will pick on that, then pick on this column, pick the location, will be in the middle of that, will be the middle of on top, will be on the middle of that column at the top. We'll double click on this, on that couplet, and we'll be able to change the parameters of that plate. Pick parts, then come to the breadth there, or change. We will change this first to M16, then change this to 220, then change this to 450. Click modify and apply and accept that. You can take a look here. The plate has been welded perfectly to the column. If you want to check the welding, you can change the welding type and the welding thickness. Just double click on the weld. Let's wait and see on the properties of the weld. Now on the weld here, you'll be able to see the weld that has been used. Now if you go to welding, you'll be able to see all these welding types. You can choose the welding type appropriate for your connection, but I'm comfortable with this. I'll just go ahead and exit from this. I'll click on empty screen to deselect that beam and that couplet. Now from here, what we're going to do next, we'll shift back to our elevation or grid K. Now prior to doing that, we want to remove all these macro active symbols. I'll right click and come to redraw here and refresh. The moment you refresh, all this will disappear, and it will leave you with a clean work of these columns connected, creating for us a compound column. Now we'll come to a grid K, and a grid K we can still see these active macro symbols. I'll right click and redraw to make them disappear. If they doesn't disappear, just click on one and right click on empty screen, right click again and click redraw. They will disappear. Now what we are going to do, we want to mirror this to this end, and prior to doing that, make sure you change the position of your x-axis, your position of your x-y-z axis. Now we want to change to enable this mirror properly. We'll want to make XYZ axis face us while face us. Now we'll come to work plane tool here, and the work plane tool will click on that, then pick on the any position here, any position. XYZ must face us for our mirror command to work properly. Now I'll highlight everything here. Then after highlighting that, because I've even selected the grid, and I'll press Ctrl and deselect the grid. Now I'll right click and come to special copy and pick mirror. After picking mirror command, I'll pick my mirror line from that spot to this spot. This will be my mirror line. The moment I click that, I'll click copy. Click copy. Perfect. I'll go ahead and click. Right click and redraw. Now from here we are going to create the beams. The rafters will come to beam right there, and the beam will come here right away. We'll just zoom closer. Zoom closer here and pick steel and come to steel beam here. Then snap on that spot, then come to this end, and prior to doing anything, you want to change the profile of this rafter. We'll come to the catalog and give it a different size of 356. 356 is okay. We'll pick the first one and go ahead and apply that and give it an OK, and come here and modify that, apply and accept. Once you've done that, we'll switch back to our isometric view. So that we'll be able to see the position of the rafter properly. Double click on that, press escape, double click on that, and come to position right here and change this position, give it back position. Just zoom closer. It's not right in the middle, so sitting right in the middle. We'll bring it in the middle point here. Now it's right, sitting properly in the middle. Want to bring it down the left here, give it right position, or left position. Perfect. Apply and accept. Now on the haunch we're going to use, we'll come to applications and component here and click and type 102, then pick a haunch. We'll pick that one and snap on this, select that and that, right click and interrupt to exit from that command. Double click again and we'll go back to the same macro. Pick on that. We'll change these properties. We'll give the thickness of our end plate to be 16. Click modify. We'll come to haunches here. We'll come to vertical. We'll change this bolting. We'll change to M16. We'll change this to 8.8 XOX. We'll give that 4 bolts at a distance of 75, and click modify. We'll come to vertical haunch and change this to give it bolts of M16 8.8 XOX, and we'll change this to be assembled on site or the thread. Yes, site is okay. And from here we'll also give 4 at 75, center to center of the bolts. Apply. Now we'll come to parameters. Here we want to put a couplet on top there. We'll pick a couplet there and click modify. Perfect. We'll go ahead and apply and accept that. From there, right click on an empty screen, right click and come to redraw, just to clean all those macro active symbols. Now we want to mirror this, and this will take us to this elevation. We'll pick on this, then right click, come to mirror. We'll use this as our mirror line and snap right here and click copy. Perfect, and click OK right there. Right click and interrupt to exit from that command. Now from here we want to create a haunch. We'll come to applications and components, and now we'll delete this and we'll use a haunch of 106, or of 105 or 106. We'll pick on that and select that and this, and we want to modify this further. We'll just double click on it again and we'll delete that, just to enable us to see whatever we are doing clearly. Now we'll come to parts. End plate will give 16 millimeter, and these are various haunches. You can give it a position of your preference, but this default is okay for us. We'll come to bolts here. We'll change the size of the bolts, M16, and we'll give this to 8.8 XOX and give it a washer there, and change that to, we give 6 bolts at a distance of 75 millimeter distance, center to center, and click that. Perfect. These are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts, and apply and accept. Perfect. We can click on empty screen, right click and click redraw to refresh and clean all those macro active symbols. Now from here we can see we are done with our compound column and our compound columns and the rafters. Now we'll switch back to isometric view. Click on empty screen just to clean everything here. Click right there and click highlight everything. The moment we've highlighted everything, we want to populate this along the z-axis, because it's z-axis now because we've not taken it back to its default position, but we can still work with it the way it is now. Now I'll come and right click and come to special copy and click linear. We want to populate this along the z-axis. The z-axis, how many do we want here? Apart from one, because we have one already. Now we'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. We want 10 here, 10 columns at an interval of 6 meters, but it is in the opposite position. The z-axis is pointing us. Now we'll give it a negative sign there, then click copy. There we are. It has been, they have been populated along the z-axis. We'll click expand just to allow space for any extra that we will delete later on. Right click and interrupt, click OK. We'll right click and come to, we'll come to view, or you can press Ctrl R, just press Ctrl R and pick the point of rotation, I'll pick that after pressing Ctrl R, and I'll be able to turn this round like this, and this will wind up our tutorial for today, and we'll be able to continue with the rest in the next presentation. Thanks a lot for watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos to come, and also don't forget to visit the Civil Max for more embedded videos on site. Thanks and bye bye. Let's meet then.